All right, look at another fibble. This is the game. It's just like Wordle, but on every row, one of the clues is a lie. And the puzzle is erecting some lies for us today, starting with erect. I'm kind of thinking a double E would be the way to go, but we can't do the E in the middle then. We could do something like this. We could do level. That's kind of interesting. The double letters are good to look for contradictions sometimes. Okay. Well, we know that there's at most one E, so this one is true. There could be no E, but the L is the interesting thing, because if there's an L somewhere, let's assume these are both true, right? That means there's an L somewhere and there's just the one L. Well, in that case, the first L should be colored yellow, not the second one. So that's actually not possible for them both to be true. And since both of these L's can't be true, clearly one of them has to be a lie. So actually the rest of these are true. There's no E, and this is all true. So if there is an L, it has to be here. If there's a single L, it has to be at the end. Otherwise, there has to be two L's if they're somewhere else. So let's just assume there's an L at the end for now. Well, we could do a double L. We could do like a double LY or something. Like jolly. Let's go for a jolly guess. Okay. Well, if there's one L, it has to be at the end, right? Otherwise, there has to be two L's. Well, for there to be two L's, these would both have to be lies, which isn't possible. If one of them is a lie because there's an L, then it has to be at the end. And, well, so this one is definitely true. This could be a yellow L. That's supposed to be green. They could both be lies. No, because if that's supposed to... No. Right. Because if this is a lie, because there's supposed to be an L, it would have to be at the end, which would make the green Y the lie. So there is no L. There is no L. Okay. Good. But we could have the Y. We could have the O and the Y, potentially. Why don't we do mommy? Look for some contradictions with the duplicate letters there. Okay, well, we know the Y is true. We already kind of had a suspicion, but now we know because one of the O's is a lie. If there were a J, then there would have to be an O, which could be there. That would make that the lie. But I don't know what that would be. You know, maybe something like joggy, I guess, but, oh, actually, no. Oh, no, if there's a J, then there's no O. O, which would mean this would be the lie, and you'd have to have an... Oh, that doesn't work. This can't... Okay, this can't be the lie, because these would all be true, and you'd have to have an M. Well, the M would have to be second, right? So, and you can't do JM, so... MJ, no, JY, that's not gonna work. So I don't think it's gonna work to have a J, is what I'm saying. That's gotta be true, which means the O is the lie. So there is an O. Now it could be there and it's the lie twice. But again, if that's the O, these are all true, and where do you put the M? There's no place to put that M. So actually, I think there is an O, and I think it's not second, which means this is true. So, which is interesting. Something like this with the Y. Smoky would work, actually. Except it doesn't, because then there's no lie in mommy. If there's an M... interesting. If there's an M... Okay, so we could have... Basically, if one of these is the lie, then there's two M's. If this is the lie, then there has to be an M second. No, then there has to be an M first, or no M. And I don't think there's going to be two M's, because the O can't be... So there's either an M at the beginning, which isn't great, or there's no M. So I think there's no M. So... Snowy or showy. Either one of those would work. Okay. Well, we know the Y is true. We're pretty sure about the O. We can't do... Wow, okay, so if there's an S, then it's the lie, and we'd have to have the N there. But I don't know what that would be. So that doesn't work. If the N were the lie there, you know, nosy, but what would be at the beginning? That doesn't work. If there's a W, that's not going to work. So I think the S or the N is the lie because it's supposed to be gray, not because it's supposed to be green. Which means the other one is true. So if the N is the lie, then you could do this. But you'd need a double consonant at the beginning, and we're kind of running out of possibilities for double consonants. Or that, but that's not gonna... That's not gonna work. So maybe the Y, maybe there's no S, and the N, we could do this, or agony. Agony. Maybe you're in agony waiting for me to think of that as a possibility as you yell it at the screen. There we go. I feel like we had that not too long ago because I made a comment about the message it gives me at the end where it says, you won, it was agony. And I said, oh, it wasn't too bad. But anyways, got it in 5 today. So let me know how long it took you to arrive at agony today. And of course, be sure to subscribe for more.